This is the Morning Drive Podcast from Double T 97.3, presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction.
I'm Mike Hebert, owner of Cantex Roofing and Construction. Every day is game day, and we'll get it right when it comes to your roofing, construction, windows, and mirrors. Call Cantex Roofing and Construction today. Together, we are one serving you.
With Jamie Lent and Jeff McGuire, I'm Chuck Heinz. Yates Morning Center chat line is open. Visual Edge IT hotline is open as well at 806-771-0973. Well, we're not really off to a very good sports start for the new year, are we?
No, I would 0-2 for the Red Raiders. So, yeah.
0-2. Well, 0-0. The Red Raiders got to at least put that loss in the 24 portion. So the Lady Raiders are the only ones to lose in 2025 so far. So I guess you can look at it that way. They still have a chance to right the ship. I mean, both teams do. It's a long Big 12 season. It's just not really what you were looking for over the last couple of days. Okay, I want to get to this and talk about this. Get your thought on it. What was? I don't think I even have to. I think I know. I don't even. I'm just going to want you to comment on it. The targeting call that wasn't called in the Arizona State Texas game, and is that just okay? That's just Texas getting the privilege of being Texas, Jamie. That's what it seemed like.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it wasn't the crown of the helmet, but it was definitely helmet to helmet, and it was I guess you could call him a defenseless receiver, which is just so hard, I think, for these defensive players with a defenseless receiver thing. I mean, you have to wait for them to turn around and go, okay, now I'm here, I can tackle you. I mean, if a guy has his back to you, he's defenseless. I don't. That's so hard. But it definitely was helmet to helmet. So I was surprised it was not called targeting.
Yeah, and so I guess for me I understand it not being called on the field. I mean, because it was a bang play. Okay, sure. But when they go to the booth and when we've seen all this stuff about, hey, we're going to protect player safety and we're going to, you see all these, roughing the quarterback calls that you just go, hey, that was football, man. I mean, that was just football. But that was a violent collision that should have been a first down for Arizona State. And I watched Scott Van Pelt last night and go, well, they still had an opportunity to win, and the sports gods, I guess, intervened, and, the ball goes off the upright and we go to overtime. But, man, that game, we got robbed of maybe a fantastic finish by Arizona State because the replay official was too weak to call the targeting call, which was textbook targeting.
I don't feel like we got robbed of a fantastic finish. I think we got a fantastic finish.
We probably did. Maybe Arizona State got robbed of a fantastic finish.
That went in favor of Arizona State. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it would be called. I was surprised it wasn't. I've been surprised 50 or 100 other times watching college football over the last 6, 8, 10 years when they've had the targeting rules in there. So it was not necessarily anything new for me. Like I said, I thought it was going to get called and it wasn't, but I didn't think it was because they were the Longhorns. It felt like, I don't want to say the officials were scared in the moment. I mean, but maybe there was a situation of them not feeling like, hey, we want to decide this game on this call.
But I understand that, but they didn't decide that call because the Texas player, hit him and he was on the up, it wasn't, like you said, the crown of the helmet, but if they're not going to call targeting for that, then, man, there have been some times when you've seen targeting called and you just go, okay, that is football. But, I just don't think you can say that was football. It just looked like Michael Taft committed a targeting penalty and they didn't have the stones to make the call.
Yeah, had every opportunity to hit him, in the back, in the, in the shoulder area, whatever, but ended up going, helmet to helmet, which to me that said it wasn't a situation where the guy caught the ball and then went low or anything like that. This is a defensive back that had every opportunity to line him up and hit him in the middle of the back or, like I said, shoulder area, and he didn't. And so that, to me, was why it was such an obvious call.
It's like we were at the arena when that call happened, and there's a lot of Arizona State people, obviously, because they're interested in that game and watching it, and had their phones out, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And, thinking I just said, well, hey, welcome to what we've seen, Texas gets preferred stuff, and that's just Texas being Texas, welcome to the club, because I just feel like if that's anybody else that targeting's called, I feel like if that's Arizona State that's doing that on the Texas guy, that would have been called targeting. I don't think there's any question about it.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm not necessarily buying into that. I buy into the officials sitting there going, man, we don't want to change the outcome of this game by this call.
And like I said, I mean, the replay official, they had the chance to go back. They were looking at it. It wasn't like, oh, hey, it's real time, and we got improved cameras now, and you guys get 17 angles that we don't get. No, this was the replay official that had every benefit of every camera to look at this from every angle, and he still didn't make the call. I mean, and that's what's so disappointing is I don't want to hear about player safety. I don't want to hear about concussion protocol. I don't want to hear about, well, we're going to change the kickoff so we can protect guys. Okay, that was helmet to helmet. They laid that kid out.
Yeah, no doubt. And again, sometimes it ends up being helmet to helmet because the offensive player makes a move that surprises the defensive back or whatever. That was not the case in this situation. He had every opportunity to hit him midsection, middle of the back, whatever. Chose not to. This from the Yates Flooring Center chat line. You're making too much sense, Jamie. That's why you'll never be a replay official. I didn't know if that was a career goal for you or not. I wouldn't hate that job. That'd be fun. I'd be all right with it.
Yeah, no, I think you. There are things there are a lot of. I mean, I think you excel at almost everything that you.
I could be in a room, right? I could be in a room where nobody is allowed to bother me, and I will get paid to watch a football game. Yeah, I'm there. Let's go.
You will have to talk to people occasionally, but I mean, it'll be at your discretion though when you want to buzz in and go, I think I want to take a look at that.
Yeah, I don't know that my eyes are good enough though.
I think you would be better at that because I think I'd want to look at everything. We're going to look at that. We're going to look at that. We're going to look at that. And the game would be 16 hours.
You would be asking when we get the replay official a microphone.
Yes. Can I have one too? Let's see. If that targeting takes place mid-second quarter on ESPN Plus game, it gets called. I agree. I agree. I mean, and I think it's absolutely wrong. I think they got hosed, and I think if it's anybody else but Texas, that call is made.
The Morning Drive podcast from Double T 97.3 is presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction.
It is January the 2nd, 2025. Here is Jeff McGuire with this day in sports history.
Excuse me. Sorry. I promise I'm not dying on New Year's Day, the day after New Year's Day. 1922, 8th Rose Bowl took place. California ties with Washington and Jefferson. 0-0. Gee, I wonder if we had to change how the Rose Bowl was picked the next year because we had a tie in something. Like we need to have something on the line for the Rose Bowl now so that we don't tie it, right?
You're very bitter on the Rose Bowl, aren't you?
I'm bitter about changing Major League Baseball's All-Star game. Because they tied. So then it needed to be home field advantage. But we fixed that and then added the zombie runner. So, hey. 1943, University of Kentucky Wildcats men's basketball team begins a 129-game home winning streak that only ends in 1955. It incorporates NCAA titles in 48, 49, and 51. 1963, New York Jets signed future Pro Football Hall of Fame quarterback Joe Namath to $427,000 contract over 3 years a pro football record at the time. 1972 NFC Championship, Texas Stadium. Dallas Cowboys beat San Francisco 49ers 14-3. 1996, in the 25th Fiesta Bowl, number 1 Nebraska beats number 2 Florida 62-24. And in 2010, Taylor Potts throws for 372 yards and 2 touchdowns, and Baron Batch runs for 101 yards and 2 scores as the Red Raiders win in the Alamo Bowl over Michigan State 41-31. Rutherford McNeil coached the team with Lincoln Riley as offensive coordinator. Happy National Buffet Day.
Oh, nice. Any buffet?
Any buffet. Although, finding them is hard now. COVID really did a number on those.
Yeah, no
Is
doubt.
the pizza buffet your best buffet?
Oh, I'm a sucker for a good breakfast buffet. You get the waffles and the bacon, and you just go hog wild on it. I'm a sucker for one of those. But yeah, pizza buffet's up there. Lots of different pizzas, lots of different options.
It would be my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at today's birthdays, Tay Diggs is 54, Fernando Tatis Jr. 26, Dak Shepard 50, Cuba Gooding Jr. 57, Edgar Martinez 62, David Cohn 62, and Jack Hanna is 78. And on this day in 1974, Chuck was very not happy. Very not happy. President Richard Milhouse Nixon signs the Emergency Highway Energy Conservation Act, setting a new national maximum speed limit to 55. It had been anywhere beforehand, guys, between 40 miles an hour, those people are insane, and 80 miles an hour. And that, this day in sports history.
This day in sports history, 6:48 this morning here on the Morning Drive. Jamie, next year, this could be happening in Lubbock. And I'm just curious if you would go to this game and to what extent you would avoid this person, and maybe you wouldn't. But LeBron James's younger son, Bryce, has committed to Arizona to be a part of the 2025 class for the Arizona Wildcats. It may be
Good for him.
a year or so before he comes because Arizona's coming to town this year. So it may not be a situation where they come to Lubbock in 2 years in a row, but what about that? What if LeBron hopped in here and saw a game? What would you think about that?
I think that would be great. I think a lot of people would like that. I mean, I wouldn't go to the game just so I could see LeBron, but
Yeah.
I would be surprised if LeBron was flying to Lubbock to watch his kid play.
Well, maybe maybe the Lakers would be in San Antonio or maybe over in Dallas, and it'd be just to have his jet come get him and bring him over here and fly in, fly out. Maybe get some barbecue and go over to the arena and watch his son play, and then head out to wherever he's playing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wouldn't imagine he would do that, but it's possible.
Okay. Did you see where he thinks he could play another 6 or 7 years?
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if he did it. He's physically, I mean, he's a beast. So he takes good care of himself, all that good stuff. The way that they, have the recovery days or the whatever you call them, the load management days. That wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, no, I think he takes good care of himself. So, okay, so going back to the college football, we'll talk more at 7 about it. So Texas wins yesterday, and Ohio State wins, and Penn State wins, and we still have the Rose Bowl to play between Notre Dame and Georgia. Of the three that have advanced, Penn State, Ohio State, and Texas, which team do you think has the best shot to now win a national championship, knowing that either Notre Dame or Georgia will also be in that mix?
Mm-hmm. I think of that group, I probably would lean towards Ohio State, and I mean, it's a toss-up. I mean, I think all three teams are good. I would put Ohio State and Texas in front of Penn State, but who knows?
Okay. Okay. And, Ohio State just absolutely destroyed Oregon. Of course, when you do that, you just kind of wonder, hey, did they peak? Is that the best? Is that the best that they can play? Ryan Day was asked that last night, and he said, well, maybe in the first half. I just don't like that guy. I hope they don't win. For whatever reason, I just don't care for him. There's just something about him that seems very unlikable. I find myself liking Steve Sarkisian more, or the Penn State coach more. Heck, even the Notre Dame coach makes Ryan Day look like somebody you'd want to have breakfast with. But I mean, if it's Kirby Smart and Ohio State that end up playing, they could play in the semifinal, because that's the matchup that would happen next. If you're rooting for coaches, man, Ryan Day's going to make me root for Kirby Smart.
I'm not a fan of Ryan Day either. I think it's probably just the whole Ohio State thing. I think more than anything, I just think that the Ohio State arrogance wears me out a little bit. So
yeah.
I feel like those are that's part of the biggest reason that I don't like Ryan Day more than anything. But I do like Marcus Freeman of Notre Dame. I think he appears to be a really good dude.
Yeah, he seems to make a lot of sense. Speaking of the Ohio State arrogance, for their home game in the college football playoffs, they had a double dotting of the I, Jamie. They had Ohio spelled out on both sides, so that the visiting team and the visitor side and the home side could see it. So that was a rare double dotting of the I, okay, for the tuba player.
Okay.
So, yeah, just some of that
fascinating,
useless trivia that just kind of goes through my brain from time to time. I didn't think I'd get a fascinating out of it. I didn't think it was quite that bad, but it was pretty bad. This from the Yates Lawrence Center chat line: Texas cannot lose with NCAA assistance on all crucial calls and no calls. Yeah, it sure seems that way. Washed Up Guy says officials are aware of which teams are favored to win games, consciously or subconsciously. That comes into play from time to time. I don't think I agree with that. I think they have a pretty good, but then something like yesterday happens where you have a targeting call that's not called.
Your daily dose of sports and fun. This is the Morning Drive Podcast from Double T 97.3, presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction.
With Jamie Lent, Jeff McGuire, and Chuck Heinz. Coming up at 9, it's the end of the bench. We will have the Rose Bowl on the air for you today. It'll be on 100.7 The Score. The kick is at 3 o'clock today, featuring Notre Dame and Georgia from New Orleans. Jamie, one quote from Coach McCaslin, then I kind of want to move on to football, but you can respond to this, because this is what he said after the ball game yesterday in his opening statement. He goes, "But to start Big 12 play with this lack of physicality defensively and let a team come in here and score 87 points is ridiculous. I told our team there's a lot of improvement we can make. I love our team. Our team identifies with the fact that we can play good offense and score. Man, do we have a lot of growing up to do and experience that's needed to come very quickly to be a legitimate contender in this league. We need to do it through practice. We need to do it in games. I love our scrap at the end when we finally got to doing it. We were more physical when we needed to, and that showed our lack of maturity to guard the ball over the course of the game. It was non-existent for the first 20 minutes. When we finally started to scrap, we fouled at the worst times. Them getting to the free throw line 22 times showed our lack of experience in guarding the ball." Boy, I mean, he kind of nailed it right on the head, didn't he?
Yeah, a lot there that I think is totally accurate.
Yeah. So it's I don't know, back to practice, and sometimes that type of performance wakes up a team, gives them some smelling salts, and we'll see how they respond to that in Utah. I think he is not afraid to coach them hard, and I think by kind of what you see on the floor, it feels like that they don't have a problem with him coaching them hard. That's kind of how I take that.
Yeah, no, I don't see any of that. Any issues with him coaching it hard. It feels like a team that I didn't feel like they didn't respond to him. I just feel like it was a bit of a wake up call.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I think I said Rose. It's the Sugar Bowl that's today at 3:00 from New Orleans, featuring Notre Dame and Georgia. So, all right. So which game kind of stood out to you? Was it the game featuring Texas and Arizona State and the Peach? Because the Rose wasn't too much to kind of look at, just from the standpoint that Ohio State blew them out.
Yeah, no, I think that's pretty easy answer right there. I mean, the first game yesterday was very entertaining with Arizona State and Texas, and that was the game I was most interested in, and loved seeing Arizona State come back the way that they did, because it felt like for much of that game, they just, especially in the red zone, they just too many missed opportunities for them in the red zone where they couldn't get it done.
Yeah, I think that was,
saw the number of plays that they ran. Compared to the Longhorns, it just just never turned into points, and so them to come back the way they did was fun, and then the late game heroics and the overtime, all that were good as well. So I just thought that was a really entertaining game to watch, really fun to watch. I was unfortunately rooting for Arizona State, but and the second game was. I didn't catch the beginning of it. By the time I did, it was a blowout, so I never ended up watching a single play. I ended up watching the Lady Raiders and not worrying about that one.
Well, man, and you kind of look at that game and went, hey, there's a lot to unpack from the Lady Raider game yesterday as well that we've discussed. These college football playoff games. And, of course, this is recency bias, probably, just from the standpoint that it's easy to think, today that they're better. But it feels like these games, just to a certain degree, have been pretty good. I mean, there have been some blowouts. There have been some stinkers. But do you think this 12-team experience so far has lived up to expectations?
The first round, there was a bunch of blowouts, right? I feel like that was expected. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I don't like the seeding system. I think it brings the possibility of blowouts in the second round too. So I feel like we'd be better off just seeding them as not having these guaranteed spots for conference champs at the top.
Yeah.
I think you just seed them 1 through 12, the best 12, and you play it that way and not have these automatic spots for these conference champions. And I think that would make it a little bit more entertaining, tighter matchups, all the above, in both the first and the second round. So that would be my suggestion as far as the change goes. But, once we get to these quarterfinal or semifinal games next week, I think you'll see better matchups.
Yeah, so like in the first round, you had Ohio State winning big over Tennessee, and Penn State winning big over SMU, and Indiana, not much of a competition between them and Notre Dame. So, maybe so that if they would have reseeded that and seeded it like you're talking about, which I agree with you, much like college basketball, I'm fine with giving conferences, automatic bids, but just because you get an automatic bid doesn't necessarily mean that you should be 1 through 4.
Right.
And I wonder why they did that. Do you think that's because of what the TV guys wanted, because they felt like the eyeballs would be better as opposed to the level of competition?
Yeah, I'm not really sure what the reason was. I mean, surely it couldn't have been about the level of competition, because it's done the opposite. It's made for less compelling matchups, less compelling games. I think they just felt like they wanted to reward ultimately, I think they wanted to reward the Power 4 conferences. But unfortunately, for the Big 12, you didn't even rate high enough. Well, actually, I'm sorry, you did with Arizona State. So it just feels like, with Boise State getting in there, they weren't one of the first 4 teams. It just feels like that the ACC champ, Clemson, was ultimately at the back. And so I don't know. It feels like that was the least smart thing to do if you want the entertaining matchups in those early rounds.
Yeah, it almost feels like for as much as they get right over the test of time, and it's taken a while to get all of this right. And you can make the case that nothing is perfect with the NCAA basketball tournament, but the thing that they get right, it seems like, is the seeding. And now some people want to reseed, once you get to the Sweet 16, or reseed once you get to the Final Four or whatever. Which I think the seeding at the start is the seeding, but it kind of makes you wonder. Well, as much as they got that right, they got this really wrong with regard to the first four, getting a guaranteed spot. And I don't know, I feel like that's going to be the first thing that's overturned. I don't know how quickly they could do that, but I think that's going to be one that's overturned. And I think getting to 16 teams so that you have 8 home games across 8 campuses, and you get 4 more teams in, and it makes those games, 4 more games, compelling as far as the postseason football is concerned, which will help everybody get more people to watch, and more money that will come to the conferences and eventually the teams.
Yeah, probably so.
So that's okay. So today in the Sugar, who wins, Jamie? Notre Dame or Georgia?
Man, the whole playing with the second string quarterback is the intriguing part of this one. I think I'm still leaning towards Georgia, though.
Okay. I just wondered, does the Cinderella's time run out today for the Georgia quarterback? Because he came in the second half. I feel like if he did come in the second half, if their quarterback doesn't get hurt, that Georgia doesn't win that game. That's kind of what I feel. But I think today his time runs out, and I think it's going to be Notre Dame that advances on to the semifinal to take on Kansas State. Now that next game is January the 9th, Jamie, and Penn State's been off for 2 days. Do you think they should push that game back based on what happened yesterday in New Orleans and the fact that they had to move the game to today?
I'm sure that's really hard to do, but I don't know. It might not be a terrible idea.
Your daily dose of sports and fun. This is the Morning Drive Podcast from Double T 97.3. Presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction. Jamie's question of the day on Double T 97.3 is brought to you by Connecticut of West Texas.
The question I have for you guys today is, what are you worried about for the Red Raider football team of 2025?
What am I worried about? Okay, so like from 30,000 feet, I'm worried about is the expectation something that we can stomach if we don't meet the expectation, knowing that we've made pretty good progress over the last 3 years, maybe not as fast as you want it, but we've made progress. I mean, you won 8 games this year, clunked it up in the bowl game, but you won 6 conference games, which you hadn't done in forever. So, but now with the portal money and everything like that you spent, it's like if you don't make the Big 12 championship game, it's a failure, and you've never made the Big 12 championship game, and frankly, haven't even really come close.
He came really close this year.
Yeah, you came.
You were one game
really
away. That was
you can. Yeah, no, I get it.
I don't know how you could say you've never come close.
Okay, well that's okay. That's fair. That's okay. So I'll take that back. Aside from this year, you've never come close, but you came close this year. But I just wonder if the expectation is which is great. It's great to have expectations. It just seems like it's a pretty big bite. I'm worried about the quarterback. I'm worried about can Baron Morton come back and be what he was, and if not, can you get Will Hammond? Because it looks like you can up and running pretty quick. So I'm worried about the quarterback.
Can your defense improve fast enough? Because they've got to improve today. You made a lot of moves. but can they improve fast enough?
I think, to me, it's tying into what Jeff says here. I just worry about the chemistry and the meshing on the defensive side of the ball. I feel like, with your quarterback and the group of receivers you're bringing back, I know you're bringing in a new running back. I know you're bringing in another receiver, all the above. Offensive lineman too. I feel like the offensive line, when you have key guys coming back, it's easier to mesh together. I worry about so many new guys on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, you've basically brought in an entirely new defensive backfield. And I know your linebackers return, so that's good, especially Jacob Rodriguez. But I just worry about the defensive side of the ball, kind of trying to figure it all out, especially when you were as poor as you were last year. So I guess it's a chemistry experiment when you're bringing this many guys to try to figure out, hey, we need you guys to gel together quickly and all that good stuff for a group that was really, really bad the season before. You're not just bringing in a few pieces to make it better. I mean, you're heavily relying on those guys to be major impact players. And so that scares me, that they can get going and get together and just be that unit that needs to be so much more improved from this season. I just think that's going to be really difficult to do in 1 year.
And Jamie, do you also think from a defensive standpoint that there'll be more changes in terms of your scheme and your philosophy than the changes that will be made offensively, given that both coordinators are going to be new?
Probably so. I wouldn't have guessed that Joey McGuire is going to bring somebody in here that's completely different offensive style than what we've had. But I think defensively, you're open to a defensive coordinator that wants to play his style, which might be different. And so I think if he's going to run a different scheme, that would be allowed and all that good stuff. So, yeah, I think there's probably more change on the defensive side than the offensive side.
Which speaks back to what you were talking about, the melding and bringing everybody together and all the changes that you're going to be making. So there's more, I guess, questions defensively than maybe offensively in terms of how you're going to approach things and do things, and then can you execute that all that stuff at the end of the day? If
I were to add a second one, what does your running attack look like without Taj Brooks? You saw a lot of Taj Brooks this year, and you were really successful in those situations. The bowl game aside, you had some good running plays. I don't know that you had a great running game in the bowl game, but there are a lot of factors that go into that. What's your running game look like without Taj Brooks next year?
You're saying you didn't think the run game looked good in the bowl game?
It didn't look...
You had one guy run for 123 and another guy run for 74?
I wouldn't... Maybe it's just the bad taste of the bowl game that's influenced this a little. And I say this because it's not like I felt like you were in that game. And
you never really were.
And it kind of felt like you were getting yards, but it wasn't... Yes, you got yards, but it wasn't a running game. I don't know how to explain it other than that. I didn't feel like it was the strength of your team like it was the rest of the year with Taj Brooks.
I don't know, but Jacoby Williams can really run, though. I mean,
he's very fast and had one great huge play.
Yeah. And Cam Dickey, you were in those press conferences, Jeff. You heard him talking about how high they were on Cam Dickey to the point where they weren't going to redshirt him because just of how well he could help them. And then
look, the course of the season,
he got hurt.
Through the course of the season, how much did we see anybody other than Taj have success running the football?
Yeah.
We really didn't try that much. I mean, we were...
Do you think that's because they were just keeping everything back for next year, or because they had questions too?
I think it was because they wanted Taj to get the record.
That's fair.
Well, and Quentin Joyner, the transfer from USC, is hopefully help helps to be part of that answer of how you replace Taj Brooks too.
This is the Morning Drive Podcast from Double T 97.3, presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction.
This with Jamie Lent and Jeff McGuire. I'm Chuck Heinz. Come to you this morning from the Yates Flooring Center chat line. Go to doublet973.com or the mobile app. The Visual Edge IT hotline is open too at 806-771-0973. Jamie, I'm off to a roaring start. I sure thought Aaron Rodgers had played another Super Bowl besides the one, so that even puts a little bit more out there that's like he left you wanting more. He won 4 league MVPs and 1 Super Bowl MVP, so he got 5 of those awards individually. The Super Bowl MVP, of course, coming in his only appearance. But, you know, when you think about and he may say, look, I got 4 MVPs, so obviously I did my job, and maybe that's part of it. Him saying, hey, I did my job. Where's everybody else doing theirs? But and maybe the Packers owed him a better team around him. But there were times when he threw some interceptions in games and things like that he was also the reason for defeat. But I don't know. I just feel like he left you wanting more.
Well, I think with any time you have a player that's that talented, you expect him to be competing in the championship a lot, whether it be football, baseball, basketball, whatever. And so you expect those guys, when their career ends, to list off how many individual awards they have, but also how many team championships. And to see him in the quote-unquote championship game just one time is, I agree with your point, that it leaves you thinking, man, he probably should have been in more.
Yeah, and probably would have been thought of a little bit differently, because I think as he's going out, and this is why I think probably his most ardent fans would say, man, I hope this is it, because it's gotten a little wacky at the end for him. And you hate to remember a player of his level, as great as he was, for the zaniness as he's going out with how things have gone with the New York Jets, because it frankly couldn't have gone any worse for him, than it has over the last 2 years.
Yeah, no, it's been going to the Jets was, you were thinking, okay, that franchise is going to now have a legitimate chance to do something in the AFC, and they've come nowhere close to that, and it's made Rodgers look a little bit bad, no doubt. And
so, just to stick with the Jets just for a second, have you seen the reports that Rex Ryan expects to be interviewed for the Jets head coaching job? They've already done that. It didn't work. And you kind of look at him and where he is now in his stage of life. He hasn't coached in a number of years. You just wonder, how in the world could that work for them?
Yeah, I think a lot of Jets fans would welcome that.
Would welcome Rex Ryan coming back?
Yes. Yeah, if they feel like he's been the one guy that was, had them in recent years, gave them a legitimate chance.
Well, he took them to consecutive AFC championship games. They weren't able to get over the hump and get into the Super Bowl. They've not been in a Super Bowl since Super Bowl III, but not that 62 is old, but 62 is old to restart, I think. But I don't know, stranger things have happened. And I wonder if he gets hired, does he go get his twin brother to help him out?
Who knows?
Because that would just be
would have been what an entertaining team that would be to watch. Just the drama would be phenomenal.
If he got hired there, I would be much more wondering who his offensive coordinator is going to be, because we know Rex knows defense, and he's going to coach the defense and have them playing very, very good defense. But what do we remember about him being a head coach? Their offense, biggest play was the butt fumble.
Yeah. I don't know. It just seems so bizarre. It's almost like the same bizarre that I have with Zeke Elliott thinking that he could help a playoff team. Is he looking in the mirror thinking, mirror on the wall, do I look like I did 10 years ago? Oh, yes, I do. I can help somebody.
What if the Zeke move is just a way to say you can do it now, so you don't have to cut him in the offseason and cut a Cowboy that you have a lot of fond memories about? What if that's what that really is? What if that's what Jerry is really saying, giving Zeke some cover?
But do you? Because I
absolutely think Jerry could be doing that.
Okay,
when I read
do
that was my
Jeff,
first thought.
Do you, Jeff, as a Cowboy fan, look at Zeke Elliott and think of him as one of the greats?
Yeah. Not all-time greats, but he was a great Cowboy. His first trip through. I never had a problem with Zeke other than his contract. His first run through.
Yeah, I mean, Chuck, there's a reason that he earned that huge contract.
Yeah.
No, you're
now,
right.
was it smart to give it to him? No, but there's a reason he got it.
If I had to choose between the two contracts, who deserved it more, him or Dak Prescott, he absolutely earned the money. It was dumb to give it to him, but he earned it. He was the leading rusher in the NFL.
No, I know, but I mean, I guess
and he was the reason you were successful on offense because everybody had to prepare for him. That's what let Dak be successful the first 4 years.
I guess I just look at the Cowboys as, and I'm paying respect to the Cowboys by saying this, in that if you didn't have postseason success as a Cowboy, I just don't know that you can consider him one of the greats. I mean, I know he led the team. I know he led the league in rushing, blah, 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 blah. I know he was a first-team All-Pro. I know he was on the rookie team, twice led the league in rushing. I look at him and in his time there as a team where the Cowboys failed as a team.
I think you can. He in his prime was a great player. The Dallas Cowboys are a storied franchise that has many, many, many great players. I don't know that I would call him one of the Cowboys' greats, but during his time, when in his prime, the first few years, he was great for a 3 or 4 year stretch. I mean, he is a prime example of why you don't pay running backs all the money, because they're good for a while and then they're not, and it goes in a hurry. And it doesn't happen that way with all of them. There are a few that can last longer than that, but Zeke Elliott is a prime example of why you don't give big bruising backs big long-term contracts, because their value, it just drops dramatically. And so for every running back out there that is whining about how unfair it is for running backs is a smart GM that's going, I'm not giving this guy a big second contract. I'm going to draft a young player and I'm going to roll with them.
And that contract helped contribute to the fact that they didn't have sustained success because of what it did to the salary cap. I don't know.
This has been the Morning Drive Podcast, presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction. Check out our library of Double T 97.3 podcasts at doublet97.3.com.